Hello and welcome in today's session of your course Learning and Teaching. Today I'm going to discuss about a very important topic, that is action research. Actually, sometimes it has been believed, or you can say it is a misconception, that research is something which is not a work of every teacher. But the reality is the teacher faces a lot of problems in day-to-day classroom transactions, and many times they are not able to get appropriate solution of their problem. So what they do, they try to find out the probable solutions. Either they discuss with the peers, the fellow teachers, or they try to read the literature or the research journals available with them, or they try to think some innovative ways, some ideas, and they try to implement and experiment it. Don't you think they are not doing research? They are also doing research, and they are doing research being in the action, being in the classroom. Along with teaching learning, they are researching to find out the solution of their problem. So this is called action research. I am Dr. Gaurav Singh from School of Education, IGNOU, and today I am going to talk about the basic types of action research and basic fundamental ideas and concepts involved in action research. You know, history of action research is very old. The term was coined by Kurt Lewin in 1940s. But in the field of education, it was Stephen Corey who did some experiments, or who used the principles and the steps of action research in the field of education. Because earlier, action research was being used in defense, especially during the World War II. Many army officers of European countries had done action research to find out the problem, to find out the solution of the problem which they have faced in the battlefield, immediate. So from there this term has emerged, because when the researcher is in action, whether the researcher is an army officer or a teacher, an army officer is in battlefield, a teacher is in the class. They face the problems, new problems, the problems about which they have never thought of. So what they do, they try to find out the solution of such problems. And when they try to find out the solution of such problems, they do action research. If you classify the types of the action research, you can classify it in many ways. But if you see the terminology which is being used as a replacement or synonymous of action research, you will find that many people call it practitioner research. Many people call it teacher research. Many people call it site-based research, and some call it action science. How action research is practitioner's research? Because in this, like the fundamental researches, the core researchers conduct the research. But in action research, the action researcher is a practitioner. For example, in educational settings, if action research is to be carried out, it can be carried out by a teacher, by a principal, by any school administrator, by any district education officer. It depends that up to what extent the problem is and at what level they want to find out the solution. The practitioner can be solo, the practitioner can be in groups. So practitioner means the teachers when conduct the research, this research become teachers' research. And you know, the research is not being done in terms of, the action research is not being done in the artificial settings of a laboratory or somewhere else. Action researches are being done in the naturalistic and realistic settings. If the problem is in the school, the experiment will be conducted in the school. The solution will emerge within the school. So school is the site of the research. If the problem is emerging in a classroom, the classroom will be the site of the research. If a problem is related to all the schools of a district of a particular area, so all the schools of that particular area will be the site of the research. So that's why action research is also known as site-based research. And because it follows the step of scientific methods, it is very systematic and it is being done during the action. That's why some people call it action science. So what action research is? In order to define action research, many practitioners tried to define it in different ways. I am going to talk about few important definitions of action research. And first such definition was given by Watts in 1985. What is in the definition? The definition is saying that action research is a process in which participants examine their educational practices systematically and carefully using the techniques of the research. So if any educational practice, any educational problem is being studied systematically and carefully using the steps and techniques of fundamental research. There are many types of fundamental researches, there are many methods, many techniques of the researches. So if we apply those techniques, those methods, those steps to solve the classroom problem, the practical problem during our educational practices, we are conducting an action research. What are the assumptions of action research? Many people think that action research is different from fundamental research in many ways. So there are some common assumptions, some basic assumptions which are related to the action research, and one such assumption is that the problem is identified by the teacher or principals who work on the problem themselves. In fundamental researches, generally problem emerges somewhere else and it has been given to some researchers and they start working on that. In medical research, if any disease is emerging somewhere, so researchers from different medical science institutions, researchers from different pharmacy companies, they have started research about that disease, its probable causes, possible solutions, medicines which can be used, medicines which need to be developed. So what is this? That problem has emerged somewhere else, not in that institution or not in that pharmacy lab, but they are started working on that, but it is not the case of action research. The problem is faced by the researcher, means the teacher or the principal. The problem emerges within the system, means in the classroom or in the school. And those who face the problem, the same set of people work to solve the problem. So the problem is identified the teachers or the principals, as well as they work to solve the problem themselves. This is the first assumption of action research. The next assumption of action research is that working on their own to improve the practices and solving problems through examination and assessing their own work make teachers more effective. This is again a very important assumption of action research. Actually, when a teacher identifies the problem in his or her practices and he or she himself tried to solve the problem by examining the problem, by identifying its root causes, what will be the problem solution? What will be the possible solutions? How these solutions will work? Then he or she himself or herself implement the solution, saw its outcomes, its result, and he or she generalize it. Then action research become a complete action research. So when a teacher is involved in all these processes and all these steps, his or her effectiveness automatically improves. So this is a very good assumption of action research. The third assumption of action research is that if teachers and principal work collaboratively, they find better solution. This assumption advocates collaborative thinking, collaborative working to find out the solution of an educational problem. The problem may be identified by a particular teacher, but if more than one brain works on the same problem, the solution is always good and better. So if more than one teachers are involved, if teacher and principal both are involved, you will get a better solution of your problem. So that's why this assumption is saying that teacher and principal should work collaboratively to find out the solution of the problem. The next assumption is that action research helps teachers and principals in their professional development if colleagues works together. Here professional development is not to earn any certificate or to earn any credit or professional development for some incentive. Here the professional development is your own development for the betterment of your profession, for the betterment of your position, your expertise in your profession, to make you a better professional. So this assumption says that if teachers work collaboratively, they work together with their colleagues on a particular problem or on a particular solution, they improve, they learn from each other, they share views of each other, they contradict to each other, they learn how to accept others' ideas, they generate their own ideas with the help of other ideas. Many ideas work together. If you are missing a particular point, your colleague may point out that particular point, so it improves your practice. So it means that you professionally grow if you do action research with your fellow teachers or with your colleagues. Now the question is that if all this is action research, what is not action research? You know, if you think, okay, I want to conduct an action research, what are the common topics on which action research can be conducted? There are very famous topics. There can be very famous, reports, articles, research papers on some action research. You identified, okay, I am interested in homework. So let me do an action research on homework. No, it is not an action research. Action research never emerges from your interest. The topic of your interest cannot be topic of the action research, because topic of the action research emerges from the problems which you face actually in your classroom. So if you are facing a problem related to homework in your classroom and for which you are not able to find a solution by discussing with your colleagues, or there is no solution available in the teacher training manuals or the manuals which have been given to you, then you try to find out a solution through an action research. But that action research is driven by the actual problem which you are facing in the classroom, not on the basis of only your interest. Then, sometimes it is not an inquiry to find out what is happening and why it is happening wrong. That is not action research. If you are facing some problem and if you try to find out the reasons of this problem, it is not action research. Until or unless you are not trying to find out the solution of the problem, as well as you are not implementing the solution and find out its outcomes or its impact or effect or effectiveness as a solution of your problem. So action research never ends with the reasons that why something is happening wrong. Rather, how that wrong can be made right. What are the methods which you can adopt? And you adopt those methods, you apply those methods, and you come out with a possible, acceptable, viable solution of the problem. That is action research. So action research focuses on how to improve, not what is wrong. Action research is never people oriented. I want to conduct an action research on class 5 students. No. If there is no problem on class 5 students, you cannot do any action research on them. I want to conduct an action research on a visually impaired child. If there is no visually impaired child in your class and he or she is not facing a problem which is qualifying to become an action research problem, you cannot conduct an action research. It means action research is never people oriented. Action research is always problem oriented. The problem which you are facing in your class, for which you are not able to get any possible viable and applicable solution from the literature, from the peers, from the experiences, and from your teacher training manuals. For that, you conduct action research. So believe me, action research is not driven by your interest. It is not only the reason oriented, and it is always problem oriented, not the people oriented. So when we think what is action research and what is not, remember that in action research, you never study your learners. Rather, you study the problem of learners. Learners are never the subject of the study in our action research. If students are not doing the homework, so why homework is not being done? And that is the problem of the study, not the students who are not doing homework. So students or the learners are not our focus of study. The problem which they are facing, the problem which we are facing in the classroom is our focus of research. Our intention is never to know why to do certain things, rather to make things better. So we cannot give any hypothetical solutions. Okay, there is a problem, let us do, there are 4 or 5 solutions, you can adopt any one. No, it is not a suggestive thing. This should be done is never the subject of an action research. You need to do that, you need to see its impact, its effect, and then you need to work to make things better. Only then you are doing a good action research. Because in action research, the focus always remain on improving instructions to facilitate learning. Basically, action research promotes 3 things: collaborative learning, reflection, and dialogue. How action research promotes collaborative learning or collaborative inquiry? Because when you examine any problem, when you study any problem which you are facing in your class, you also discuss with your colleagues that are they also facing the similar problem? Sometimes the focus of the problem is, the scope of the problem is not your classroom, but your whole school. Across the classrooms, sometimes you face such problems. So when there are problems, either in your class or the other's class of your colleagues, or it is of your school, you discuss about it with your colleagues, fellow teachers, principal, and sometimes even the administrator of your school. So what you do, you collaboratively inquire about the reason. You do a collaborative investigation actually to find out the solution, which are school related issues. So that's why action research is a kind of collaborative inquiry. Action research is also a reflection or reflective practice. How it is? Actually, when you face any problem in your class, you start reflecting and thinking that why this problem is emerging. You try to reflect on your practices, that is there something wrong with my practice, with my method, with my tool, with my teaching learning, with my learning aid which I am using. So a teacher who is an action researcher always reflects on his or her own practices. that how these practices are performing in the classroom. Is there any need to improvement in my practices? Is there need to improvement in any teaching method? Is there any need for improvement in any material which you are using to support the teaching learning or to facilitate the teaching learning? Or is there any change required in the assessment technique? What is going on in your classroom practices? So an action researcher always keep on reflecting on his or her classroom practices. And when you reflect, when you discuss, you basically dialogue. You discuss the issues with other teacher colleagues. You discuss the issues with your principals and administrators. You discuss with the school system, within the school system, with your management. And sometimes you discuss with the parents, even with the learners. So action research basically create a situation of a dialogue about the issues which are being faced in your school. The dialogue can be with the teacher, the dialogue can be with the parents, the dialogue can be with the principal, the dialogue can be with the school administration, the dialogue can be with anyone. But there is a continuous dialogue which is very important. If we try to classify the action research, you will find a lot of classifications of the action research, but I am going to discuss in brief about only 3 types of action researches, that is individual teacher research, collaborative action research, and school-wide action research. And this classification was given by Amalie Colhan in 1993. So according to him, what is an individual teacher research? Especially the problem or the issue which is being faced by a teacher in his or her classroom only, which is not across the classrooms, which is not across the school. Sometimes it can be related to a particular teacher only, even not with the whole school or whole class. Means with other teachers, the students are comfortable, but with one teacher, that teacher is facing a lot of problem. Can be in the methodology, can be in the classroom management, can be in the homework, can be in the bullying, can be in any area. So sometimes if the problem is related to a particular classroom or a particular teacher, then if teacher is doing an action research, that is called individual teacher research, where a teacher need to be engaged as an individual researcher. You may find some support from your colleagues. You may not have support from your colleagues. It doesn't matter. But it is always suggested that even if you are conducting an action research as an individual, you take support from any knowledgeable educator. You can seek support from any external resource also. You can discuss with the researchers, educators, teacher educators, the people who are working in teacher education and researching in teacher education or in psychology or the area which is associated with your problem. So it doesn't mean that if you are doing any individual teacher research, you will do everything on your own and you are not required and you are not allowed to discuss with others. You are required. You require to discuss with others. But the whole planning and action and working is being done by only by you. Then comes the collaborative action research. If the problem which you are going to take in your action research is not in one classroom, it is more than one classroom, or more than one teacher are facing the same problem, then it requires the involvement of more teachers, sometimes administrator also. So such researches involve more collaboration, where teacher and administrators work together. So it promotes basically a joint effort in a specific area of study, where you find different opportunities to share and dialogue with your colleagues. There are many issues which are being researched and which are of very common concern. So in collaborative action research, more than one mind work together. The other mind can be of your colleague, can be of your principal, or any other administrator. Then comes the school-wide action research. Actually, when we talk about a school-wide action research, every faculty member of the school is involved in studying a specific issue identified from the school-based data. So sometimes you identify a problem which is a school-wide, means you need to solve it with the help of your colleagues, with the help of your principal, because the problem is being faced by all the classrooms or by most of the classes, by most of the grades. So you require a lot of support, infrastructural support, data management support, data collection support, experimentation support from the administration as well as with your teachers. So you need the involvement of your whole school, or many people of the school of different level are involved in such researches, because the result can lead to a school-wide change later on. So such researches are known as school-wide action researches. These are basically directly related with your school improvement plan, and such researches deal with various issues which are related to school improvement. Sometimes you may find that there is an issue which is not directly related to the school, but it has a strong impact on the school improvement. So it can be an school improvement indicator too. Let us see certain examples. For example, time management skill. So if a teacher is facing a problem to manage the time within the classroom, he or she is not able to finish the whole class within the given time period, or if he or she is not able to distribute the task in the whole class, and if he do so or she do so, then they are not able to manage the time. So that can be a class related problem or a particular teacher related problem. So that can be an example of a teacher centric or single teacher level action research. If you want to study the implement of peer tutoring for an effective method to reach out each learner in large classroom, so because you are going to study about the effect of peer tutoring, you need peers. So it can be an example of collaborative action research. If you want to implement a positive behavior support program in your school, then you may require a school-wide action research to see its effectiveness for improving the learner's safety. Let us compare all the three researches in brief. What is the focus? In individual teacher research, the focus is single classroom issue. Whereas in collaborative action research, the focus can be single classroom with more than one teacher, or can be several classrooms facing the common issue, so more than one teacher or teacher and principal are involved. But a school-wide action research, the focus is always a school issue, the problem or the area which is of collective interest. So what kind of support is required? For individual teacher research, you just require a mentor or a coach or a person who is more knowledgeable, who has the idea of the area where you are working. You just need to assess the technology and some assistance for the data organization and analysis. But if you are doing collaborative research, more than 2 teachers are involved, then sometimes you require a colleague to help you the time which is your time as a substitute. So you require sometimes substitute teachers. You require some release time where you can think about the research and work about the research with your collaborators. So you need a close link with your administrator. For a school-wide research, school commitment is very important. School leadership should be very positive. There should be continuous communication between the researchers, between all participants of the researchers, and sometimes you may require some external participants. The potential impact of a teacher-centric action research can be on curriculum, on instruction, or on assessment. But a collaborative research may bring the changes in the curriculum, instruction, and assessments along with the policy. But a school-wide action research has a potential impact on the school restructuring, change in policy, parent involvement, or sometimes evaluation of the program. There are certain side effects also which are possible. If a teacher continuously doing action research for each and every problem he or she is facing, then his or her practices are basically more dependent on the data information. And in action research, the data which is being shared with you, sometimes it is not correct. So if there is some problem in the data, your outcome of the research will also be equally affected. There are two positive of collaborative research, that it improves the collegiality, as well as the formation of partnership takes place in the school. So side effects are not always negative, they are positive also. In school-wide action research, not only it improves the collegiality, but the collaboration, but also the communication, team building, and people also know that how to share our disagreements and how to learn to be agree, being disagree. So many such type of skills are being developed with such researches. So dear teachers, with this I must say that if you want to improve your teaching learning practices, if you want to find out the solution of the problems which you are facing in your classroom and you are not getting any idea from any other, let us plan an action research. In coming sessions, I will talk about how to plan an action research, but let us pledge that to find out the solutions, let us plan for an action research, let us do action research. It will help to improve our practices, it will bring some professional development in ourselves and make our learners well-informed learners. Thank you very much.